bring in Middle East specialist Trita Parsi. Trita, great having you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And let's start off with what is the current status of U.S.-mediated ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas?
Well, frankly, I don't think the U.S. is mediating towards a ceasefire at this point. The Trump administration has essentially delegated its entire policy towards the region, particularly towards Israel and Gaza, to the Israeli government. There has been numerous proposals, many that Hamas has accepted, that had actually been completely written by the Israelis. The Israelis nevertheless rejected them, their own proposal, because the Israeli government does not have an interest in actually seeing the fighting come to an end. And the Trump administration has decided that they're just going to follow Israel's lead at this point.
But Trita, it sounds counterintuitive. If you write your own proposal, then why would you not accept it?
Because you're hoping that the other side would reject it, and when they, against all odds, perhaps accepted it, then you're stuck in this awkward situation in which you are rejecting your own proposal. That's exactly what happened with the last proposal a couple of weeks ago.
And how do Israeli military actions in Gaza align with the country's stated goals in the conflict if they're achieving what they want, and at the same time you tell me they're not actually accepting what they achieve?
Well, because you have elements in the Israeli government who do not want to see any end to the fighting because of the fact that they want to see not only Gaza, but also the West Bank annexed. If the fighting in Gaza ends, and when I refer to fighting, I'm essentially referring to what the Israelis are doing, because this is not really much of a war. If it ends in Gaza, it will be making it more difficult for them to be able to do what they're currently doing, which is in annexation of the West Bank. They need the fighting there to continue, to get most of the attention so that they can more quietly annex the West Bank and eliminate any possibility for a Palestinian state. Then, of course, you have the Prime Minister of Israel himself, who does not want to see an end to the fighting because he knows very well that once the war ends, criminal charges against him inside of Israel will be picked up again. New elections will occur, and this is something that he is seeking to avoid, and it is openly discussed in Israel that they're essentially taken hostage by the Prime Minister's desire to stay out of jail, and as a result, he keeps the rest of the country in war.
Let's talk about back-channel negotiations and other actors around this conflict, because there are many actors playing, efforts, showing efforts to secure the release of hostages, the end of the conflict, and so on. What do you see in those back-channel efforts?
There's numerous efforts, numerous countries that are involved in trying to find a solution, a release of the hostages, and end to the fighting. However, that can never be successful unless the Israelis either agree or are forced to agree. The only country that could force them to agree, and on one occasion did force them to agree, is the United States. But the Trump administration's attitude towards Israel, which in the beginning of his term was at times firm and showed a great willingness to actually put serious pressure on Israel, something that the Biden administration never did, has now shifted back and is increasingly becoming very similar to what happened during the Biden administration, which is a policy of essentially just deferring to what the Israelis want.
Then I'd like to understand which are the most significant obstacles preventing a political resolution to the conflict beyond what we just discussed, because it seems to be in the interest of the U.S. to end this never-ending or apparently conflict without an end.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely lies in the United States' interest to end this war, to end the occupation, find a peaceful solution. But that is, however, not the policy that is currently being pursued, frankly, not the policy that was pursued earlier on. The Trump administration, I think, has campaigned on a promise of getting U.S. troops out of the Middle East. To get the U.S. out of the Middle East requires a degree of stability in the region. The United States doesn't have to provide that stability itself, but creating some form of a security architecture in the region would be tremendously helpful in order for the United States to be able to shift towards that security architecture. That in and itself then requires some movement in the direction of a resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What the U.S. is doing, however, right now, it is following Israel's lead, which does not want to see the United States lead the region, and that does not want to see a Palestinian state being created. So this is by no means an American first policy. This goes completely against the U.S.'s own interest.
Trita Parsi, thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you so much for having me.